Today is the end of the year, but also the end of the decade, and what a decade it's been, particularly for Parliament, right? The Serjeant-at-arms Regina Mohlomi has retired. This after 23 years of service in Parliament. She was the first female Serjeant-at-arms to lead the President, in fact, the presiding officers of the National Assembly into the chamber during ceremonies. You're looking at those visuals for a particular reason. Who can ever forget these scenes? So, Regina Mohlomi, her job was relatively peaceful and calm until, of course, the arrival of the economic freedom fighters in Parliament in 2014. And we all know how the tone of Parliament actually changed, either be it from how Parliament was managed by presiding officers or perhaps how the EFF was actually engaging in Parliament. So let's have a conversation with her. She joins me now from Pretoria, where she's enjoying her retirement. I've been looking forward to this conversation for quite some time, Ma'am Regina. So talk to me about what you've been doing since retirement. I mean, the last day was in November, right?
No, the last day was actually on the 13th of December. And but then that is usually the closing shutdown period for Parliament. I was privileged to be given time off as leave, even though it's my last month. In fact, my official last day is today. When I am from tomorrow, I am not Serjeant-at-arms or employee of Parliament anymore.
Fantastic.
What I've been doing, I have travelled.
Yes, please go ahead, ma'am.
Sorry, I'm saying I travelled along the Garden Route to the Eastern Cape and then along the Karoo, and then only arrived in Pretoria on the 23rd. I have not had a chance to actually find my feet yet.
Yeah.
And I had to travel to Limpopo yesterday.
Many would agree that you actually needed the break, so it was quite apt that Parliament would give you that consideration to take time off on your last month. When you look back at your time, particularly as Serjeant-at-arms since 2011, many of us would hardly have noticed that there's a person who walks in before the Speaker and other presiding officers walk into the National Assembly carrying the ceremonial mace. Yeah. When you look back on that tenure from 2011, what are some of your highlights?
There's lots of highlights when good things have happened, and the fact that the Parliament has been able to carry out its duties. Many times when particular pieces of legislation is passed or a particular debate is held that actually speaks directly to where I come from, or what that speaks to the issues that I know as a citizen of South Africa. Some of those highlights, but there's always also been the unfortunate situations when members of Parliament behaved in a particular way and the House descended into chaos.
Yeah, we'll talk about those particular occasions, but I want you to talk to me about one of your ceremonial tasks, carrying the ceremonial mace into the National Assembly. It may seem insignificant, but it's particularly significant, isn't it? I mean, I'm led to understand that the mace itself is quite heavy, at about 9 kilograms, but also carries the heavy weight of signifying the official business of Parliament.
Yes, the mace is actually almost 10 kilograms in weight. I have had to get used to it, I mean, I've been worried about actually the mace falling while I was working, especially on State of the Nation address days. It has been quite a privilege, though, to be the person who comes into the chamber for the sittings of the House to signify that the sittings of the House are beginning and that the authority of the Speaker is in place. So, I mean, amongst all the hundreds of thousands of people that could have done this job, it was me It is quite a privilege.
So talk to me then about taking the work of Parliament seriously, ma'am, because, you know, Parliament are the representatives of the people. People queue every 5 years to elect members of Parliament to represent them and lead the governance project. Did you always feel that the seriousness of Parliament and its role in our democracy was always taken seriously? Now you can talk to me. You are now retired. Did you always feel that Parliament lived up to the expectations of South Africans?
There are different sides to it. One part is the citizens themselves, the people who go out to vote, how seriously they take the voting that they have to do in order to send people, the caliber of people that they send to Parliament, and the kinds of messages that they keep sending to the people that they have voted for. But also the people who have been voted into Parliament and the way that they have looked at the work that must be done. I must say there are different ways. There are people, there are members of Parliament, even staff members who see Parliament as the epitome establishment in the country, who actually diligently do their work all the time, who actually are also interested in what the public require, what South Africans need, and try as hard as they can to take those needs and desires forward. But then obviously from time to time you hear about the unfortunate things that happen, that you know, when a member of the public requires assistance, especially from Parliament, and tries to get the issues addressed, and they are ignored, or you know, all of the other issues that possibly are not as important take over, and then you have one, and then you have 100, and then you have 200, and then you have 300, and then you have tires burning in the streets because of that.
Right. Talk to me then about the point at which in 2014 the EFF comes into Parliament and things are shaken up quite seriously. Talk to me about the first time you had to try and get them to leave the House, if you can still recall that, because many of us will recall the then Speaker, Baleka Mbete, would first call on you. This is before the days of the so-called white shirts in Parliament, the security. She would call on you and say, I will now call on the Serjeant-at-arms to assist these members to leave the House. It didn't always play out that way, did it?
No, it didn't. It didn't play out that way, but previously it did. I mean, when you go and approach a member of Parliament for whatever reason, when the presiding officer says they must leave the House, you almost expect that they will just leave, you know, of their own will. But then it didn't work out as soon as the EFF arrived. We were called upon and almost forced to have a look at the proceedings and procedures of Parliament in a completely different way. We did not have rules to deal with those particular issues that we had to deal with when the EFF arrived. We were called upon to shake up the rule book, you know, and extend the standard operating procedures, and obviously with the permission and approval of the presiding officers, to make sure that the sittings of the House at least can be for the purpose of doing the work of Parliament.
Did you at one level perhaps understand why the EFF were as aggressive as they were, particularly against issues to do with former President Jacob Zuma and holding him to account? Because, you know, at the end of the day, it's the role of Parliament to hold the executive to account. Did you at one level see it from their perspective?
It was difficult to see it to the fullest perspective, because while you understand the questions that are being asked, and while you understand the frustration when you do not get an answer about the questions that you are asking, as a student of conflict management, it was difficult for me to actually watch conflict happening where I could not do anything, and when the establishment was not prepared for that particular kind of conflict that was happening. I have always maintained that there is a different way of dealing with these issues, but also, you know, some people might call me a peacenik. I would like to have seen more peaceful, robust, but more peaceful challenges being put across in the chamber.
In fact, in their reflection, the EFF did say that the first time you had to eject them, you sort of did it quite gently and walked up to them and sort of explained that they needed to leave the house. Lastly, ma'am, tell me about your own safety and the support to the parliamentary staff that you worked with. Were there occasions when we would be watching these ugly scenes from Parliament, some people finding them amusing, some of us looking at them and being concerned about the state of our parliamentary democracy? Were there occasions when you were worried about your own safety, where you thought, you know, something might happen here, I might be caught in the middle of it and actually get hurt, or someone could actually get seriously injured?
The possibility of somebody getting hurt in the kinds of chaos that we experienced was always there. But at the same time, we prepared for these things, and we told each other where to be at certain times when these problems were happening. It was always an issue that I have to walk up to a member of the National Assembly and speak to them. And in that instance, you know, you do not know what the reaction of others would be, except that it has not happened to me, and I'm thankful for that.
All right. Do enjoy your retirement, ma'am, after serving South Africa in that particular role. I really appreciate your time this afternoon. This is The Lead on ENCA.